No one on that block believed it was possible. Not the housekeepers. Not the driver at the gate. Not even Rihanna, who has spent nearly 2 decades reading rooms faster than the room can read her. And that single, quiet fact is the reason the internet has been on fire since Sunday. Because what ASAP Rocky did behind the walls of that house is not the kind of moment the fame apparatus knows how to package. This was not a rumor. This was not a headline chase. This was not a publicist's bedtime story leaked at 3 a.m. to save a slow news week. What happened between Rihanna and Rocky is something Hollywood has no template for. And by the time you reach the end of this story, you will understand exactly why every label boss, every runway director, every awards booker, and every stylist with a Finny pass spent the following 2 nights on frantic conference lines from Los Angeles to Paris trying to reverse engineer a decision Rocky had already sealed months earlier. Rihanna barely had time to kick her heels off. She had just walked out of a punishing Finny strategy day, the sort of day where a single blink of hesitation costs 8 figures. Rihanna was drained. Rihanna was quietly proud. Rihanna wanted nothing more than to disappear into her own hallway, into the smell of her own kitchen, into the soft chaos of RZA and Riot fighting over a plastic dinosaur somewhere upstairs. But when Rihanna stepped into the living room, Rocky was already there. Not pacing, not smiling, not holding one of those absurd little bouquets he used to buy from bodegas just to make her laugh. Rocky was sitting. Rocky was still. Rocky was looking at the floor the way a man looks at a sentence he has been practicing for weeks. Rihanna felt it before Rocky said a word. Every woman alive knows that particular silence. It is not the silence of comfort. It is the silence of a decision that has already been made. Rihanna asked Rocky if he was okay. Rocky lifted his head slowly, pulled a breath so deep it seemed to drain the air out of the entire room, and said the sentence that would ricochet across every platform within 48 hours. Rocky told Rihanna he had been thinking about this for months. Not days, not weeks, months. And Rihanna felt her stomach fold in on itself, because she is not the kind of woman who mistakes gravity for melodrama. And she knew instantly that Rocky was not there to celebrate her win. Rocky was there to tell her he was walking away, away from the studios, away from the runways, away from the interviews, away from the entire polished edition the feed keeps serving you every time his name trends. Let me rewind the tape a little, because to understand what Rocky said in that living room, you have to understand exactly who he was saying it to. ASAP Rocky does not speak about Rihanna the way most artists speak about the women in their orbit. Rocky speaks about Rihanna the way people speak about the one variable they still cannot believe balanced their equation. Rocky has said, in interview after interview, that Rihanna is not a trophy, not a look, not a chapter. Rihanna is the equation. Rihanna is the answer the math had been reaching for since he was a boy standing outside a New York club with 2 friends who are no longer alive to tell the story. Rocky has said that the very first time he saw Rihanna in the flesh, he could not even get past the bouncer. And Rihanna, who was already Rihanna, walked out into the street, locked eyes with him, and something silent and permanent moved in his chest that he never quite got back out. That is the man who was now sitting in front of Rihanna, asking her permission to vanish. Rocky told Rihanna the truth in fragments. Rocky told her the calendar was eating him alive. Rocky told her the strangers with lenses had turned into shadows he could not shake off his own sons. Rocky told her that fatherhood, the thing he had prayed for since he was old enough to know what praying meant, was becoming impossible to protect because RZA and Riot could not step out of a hotel lobby without 100 flashes locking onto them like a firing line. Rocky told Rihanna he still loved the music. Rocky told her he still loved the fashion. Rocky told her he still loved the sound of a crowd chanting his name back at him under stadium lights. But Rocky did not love the man he was becoming inside the machine. And then Rocky said the sentence that made Rihanna go completely still. Rocky said he was no longer sure the world would even recognize him without the noise. Rocky said he was no longer sure he would recognize himself. Rihanna sat down slowly, the way a woman sits down when she suddenly realizes that the person she loves has been drowning quietly in the same room she has been living in. And here is the piece almost nobody is talking about, because this is the part that separates a rumor from a revelation. Rihanna did not argue. Rihanna did not push back. Rihanna did not try to fix him, because Rihanna, more than almost any human alive, knows exactly what Rocky was describing. Rihanna is the woman who walked away from music for 6 full years and let the industry write her obituary 3 separate times before she reappeared with a beauty empire in her hands. Rihanna knows the exact topography of the mountain Rocky was standing on. Rihanna knows how long the climb down actually takes. So Rihanna reached out, took Rocky's hand, and said the words the internet has been repeating in every language since the story slipped. Rihanna told Rocky that if he needed to disappear for a year, she would personally build the walls to make him invisible. Rihanna told Rocky that the world had already eaten enough of him for one lifetime. Rihanna told Rocky that the man she fell for on that New York street had never been the one on the red carpet, and it was time he stopped pretending otherwise. Rocky broke down. Not loud, not messy. The quiet way strong men break down when someone finally sees the whole of them. And this is why this moment matters. Because for a decade, the culture has been fed a version of ASAP Rocky and Rihanna manufactured for engagement metrics. What happened in that living room is the version the algorithm was never supposed to touch. And now that it has slipped into the timeline, it has begun to change how people talk about both of them, how young men look at their own partnerships, and how the fashion industry is rewriting its own next quarter in real time. And now the part that will genuinely rewire your assumptions, because the story does not end in the living room. 2 days after that conversation, Rocky was photographed at a Harlem bodega. No security, no entourage, no handler pretending to be a friend. Just Rocky in a hoodie pulled low, Rihanna beside him in denim and pink laughing like they were both 19 again, and a bodega cat sleeping on a stack of newspapers behind them. The block recognized them instantly, but something about Rocky felt different. Rocky was slower. Rocky was softer. Rocky was smiling wider than the camera had caught him smiling in years. Rocky was moving through the neighborhood like a man who had already begun to lay down the version of himself he had been dragging around for a decade. Rocky has always talked about Rihanna like she was the compass that kept him pointing home. Rocky has said, more than once, that his mother told him for years he was going to end up with Rihanna. Rocky has said his mother would look him dead in the eye and quietly insist that whatever woman he thought he was building a life with in the moment was not the ending of his story. Rocky has said he used to laugh his mother off. Rocky has said he used to tell his mother that Rihanna was only a friend. Rocky has said his mother would just smile and repeat the same sentence. Mama saw the last page long before he learned to read the first one. And now, standing in that bodega in Harlem, Rocky looked like a man finally living the ending his mother had underlined in her mind decades earlier. That is where the third layer of this cracked open, because sources orbiting the couple have quietly begun confirming what Rocky told Rihanna in that living room. Rocky is not simply stepping out of the spotlight. Rocky is preparing to pass the passcode of his public life to Rihanna entirely. Every rollout, every campaign, every camera, every interview. Rocky wants Rihanna to be the face. Rocky wants to become the architect behind the curtain. Rocky wants to build without being watched. And Rihanna, the same woman who has been the most photographed human alive for the better part of 2 decades, has reportedly agreed. Not because Rihanna wants any more attention. Rihanna already has more attention than one nervous system should be asked to metabolize. Rihanna has agreed because she is willing to absorb the wattage Rocky can no longer carry. Rihanna is willing to stand in the storm so Rocky can finally feel sunlight on his face without a flash bulb hiding inside it. If you understand how modern celebrity actually works, you understand how enormous a decision that is. This is not a couple redistributing chores. This is not a rebrand. This is a couple quietly detonating the entire operating manual of a modern power partnership, because Hollywood does not teach this. The music industry does not teach this. The fashion houses of Milan and Paris do not teach this. What Rocky and Rihanna are doing behind closed doors is an open act of rebellion against every unwritten rule the fame apparatus has ever enforced. Rocky has said it plainly in every interview for the last 3 years. Rocky has said Rihanna is his match. Rocky has said if it did not match, it would not work. Rocky has said Rihanna carries what most people never even attempt to lift, and Rihanna carries it with a grace that has never once cracked. And the way Rocky talks about Rihanna is not the way men usually talk about the women they love. It is the way people talk about the sky. It is the way people talk about the ocean. It is the way people talk about a thing they know they will never fully understand, but will happily spend the rest of their life trying to protect. Rocky once said that the day Rihanna announced her pregnancy in the middle of Harlem, standing in the same neighborhood where Rocky and Rihanna had just been walking, he watched Rihanna glow in a way he had never seen a woman glow. Rocky said Rihanna, born in Barbados and raised on ocean light, looked like she had been born on those exact New York blocks. Rocky said Rihanna wore pink and denim and gold and laughed with her whole chest. And Rocky said the sound of that laugh became the anchor of his entire adult life. Now imagine being the man who says those sentences about the woman he loves. Now imagine that same man sitting in a living room a few years later telling that same woman he needs to disappear in order to keep being the man who is capable of saying those sentences. And you will understand why Rocky's decision is not a retreat at all. Rocky's decision is a rescue mission. A rescue mission for himself. A rescue mission for his boys. A rescue mission for the relationship the cameras had begun to slowly corrode from the outside in. But this is where the story turns explosive, because within 72 hours of Rocky's private confession, the entire industry began quietly bracing for impact. Labels started shifting deadlines. Fashion houses started reshuffling campaign calendars nobody outside the buildings even knew existed. Awards producers began whispering that Rocky's name would not be appearing on any performer list for the foreseeable future. And in the middle of all of that reshuffling, Rihanna began canceling her own upcoming press appearances one by one. Because Rihanna, in her own words, had already made a decision of her own. If Rocky was going to step back, Rihanna was going to make absolutely certain that the world could not use her presence to fill the silence he was building. That is not a couple. That is a covenant. And now let me tell you what is making people lose their minds in the comment sections. Because for years, the loudest talking point around Rocky and Rihanna has been the money. Rihanna is a self-made billionaire. Rocky, for all of his brilliance, is not. And every interviewer, every gossip anchor, every daytime host has tried at some point to poke at that gap. Rocky has answered the same way every single time. Rocky has said Rihanna has billions and he has multi-millions, and there is not a single thing on this earth that could ever make him feel small about that. Rocky has said Rihanna's rise has never been his ruin. Rocky has said Rihanna's empire is not something he owns a piece of and not something he resents an inch of. Rihanna built that. Rihanna alone. And Rocky is standing on the sidelines of Rihanna's stadium clapping with the loudest hands in the crowd. That version of masculinity is almost nowhere else on the internet right now. And that is exactly why the living room moment is exploding across every timeline. Because for years the culture has been telling young men that a woman's success is a personal threat. Rocky is showing the whole world what it looks like when a man treats his partner's success as a gift he was invited to witness. Rihanna, in return, is showing the world what it looks like when a woman refuses to ask her partner to shrink so that she can shine. Rocky and Rihanna are both refusing the script. Rocky and Rihanna are both quietly burning the old rules in real time. That is why Rocky's decision to step back does not feel like a defeat. Rocky is not leaving because he lost the spotlight. Rocky is leaving because RZA and Riot deserve a father who is not being pulled apart at the seams every Tuesday afternoon. Rocky is leaving because Rihanna deserves a partner who is not being hollowed out by his own schedule. Rocky is leaving because the noise had begun to drown out the exact voice that made him famous in the first place. Rihanna, watching all of this unfold on a Harlem sidewalk with her hand in Rocky's back pocket, is said to have told the people closest to her only one thing. Rihanna said Rocky finally chose himself. Rihanna said Rocky finally chose the family. Rihanna said in a world that eats celebrities alive, Rocky had just done the single most rebellious thing a man in his position could do. Rocky had chosen his home over the machine. And that is where a fourth revelation slipped out, because it turns out Rocky had been quietly building the exit door for well over a year. Studios purchased under holding companies. A creative compound assembled in a coastal town he refuses to name. A tight ring of collaborators sworn to a silence tighter than any non-disclosure agreement. Rocky had been architecting his own disappearance while the rest of the industry assumed he was just enjoying fatherhood. And the reason Rocky waited until that specific night in that specific living room to tell Rihanna is because Rocky wanted Rihanna to walk into it rather than be dragged into it. Rocky wanted Rihanna to have the choice he never truly had at her level of fame. Rocky wanted Rihanna to look him in the eye and decide, on her own terms, whether she was going to step into the quiet with him. Rihanna did not hesitate. Rihanna said yes before Rocky had even finished the sentence. And now the world is watching to see what happens next, because Rocky is not disappearing forever. Rocky is doing something far more destabilizing to the fame apparatus than disappearance. Rocky is proving that a man at the exact peak of his own power can walk away from the peak and still remain the peak. Rocky is proving that attention is not the only currency worth chasing. Rocky is proving that the loudest flex left in modern celebrity is a room nobody can photograph. And Rihanna is proving that when a woman of her altitude has the option to defend her own light, she can also choose to shield someone else's. Rihanna is proving that real partnership is not about who stands in the light and who stands in the shadow. Real partnership is about who is willing to trade places when the story calls for it. Rihanna is proving that a billionaire can still be a wife first, a mother first, a partner first, and none of those roles ever cost her a single inch of the empire she built with her own two hands. Rocky has said in an old interview that a fearless spirit slipped into his chest the first night he ever performed on a stage with Rihanna. Rocky said he did not know where it came from, but it carried him through a performance he was not certain he was ready for. And the people who have spoken with Rocky in the last few weeks say that same spirit has returned, but not for a stage this time, for a life. Rocky, in his own quiet way, is walking off the stage he built and onto the stage he has been trying to reach for years. Rihanna is walking beside him. There is a moment in every celebrity romance where the audience stops watching the couple and starts learning from them. Rocky and Rihanna crossed that line the night Rocky finished his sentence. Because what happened inside that house was not a scandal. It was not a breakup. It was not a betrayal. It was a blueprint. A blueprint for how two of the most photographed people alive decided, quietly and without asking anyone's permission, to take their own lives back from the timeline. Here is the question everyone is asking tonight. And it is the question you should be asking too. If Rocky can walk away from a career most people would lie, sell, or bleed for, and Rihanna can build the walls to protect him while he does it, then what does that say about the rest of us? What does that say about the machines we serve without questioning? What does that say about the noise we have been mistaking for meaning? What does it say about a culture that only knows how to reward people for staying visible, even when visibility is the exact thing dismantling them? Rocky once said, in an old interview no one paid attention to at the time, that Rihanna had always been his boo. Rocky said Rihanna had always been the answer. Rocky said the story between Rocky and Rihanna had already been written before Rocky learned how to read it. And now, watching Rocky step out of his own spotlight for the woman his mother predicted decades before the world caught on, all of us are finally reading the same page at the same time. Rihanna, according to the two people close enough to know, ended the conversation in that living room the same way Rihanna ends every real moment in her life. Quietly, Rihanna looked at Rocky. Rihanna held his hand. Rihanna said the sentence, anyone who has ever loved someone honestly will feel land in their chest for the rest of the night. Rihanna told Rocky that Rocky and Rihanna had made it here together. And Rihanna told Rocky that whatever came next, Rocky and Rihanna would make it there together too. That is the story the internet is trying to metabolize tonight. That is the story labels and publicists and celebrity commentators do not know how to spin, because it does not fit a single one of their formulas. It is not a scandal. It is not a stunt. It is not a rebrand. It is a couple choosing each other in a world engineered to pull them apart. It is ASAP Rocky choosing silence in an industry that has forgotten how to shut up. And if this is the beginning of Rocky's disappearance, then somewhere out there, in a Harlem walk-up or a Barbados sunrise or a studio nobody can find on any map, Rocky is already becoming the man his mother saw first. Rocky is already becoming the father RZA and Riot will remember when they are old enough to write about him. Rocky is already becoming the partner Rihanna always knew was waiting underneath the noise. Because when a man like Rocky walks away from the noise, Rocky is not vanishing. Rocky is finally arriving. And the last thing Rihanna is said to have whispered as Rocky and Rihanna sat in the quiet of that living room is the sentence that is going to define this entire chapter of both of their lives. Rihanna looked at Rocky and told him she had been waiting years for him to find his own silence. Rihanna told Rocky she had been waiting years for him to choose it. Rihanna told Rocky that from that night forward, whatever weather the world tried to throw at Rocky and Rihanna were going to stand inside the eye of it together. So the real question is not whether Rocky is walking away. The real question is what Rocky is walking toward. And if the last few weeks are any indication at all, Rocky is walking toward the exact life his mother described to him decades before it existed. A life with Rihanna. A life with RZA and Riot. A life beyond the algorithm, beyond the flash bulbs, beyond the industry that has spent a decade trying to define him. A life where Rocky's biggest performance of the year is not a Super Bowl halftime and not a Paris runway walk. A life where the biggest performance is a Sunday morning at the kitchen counter with Rihanna in one of his hoodies and both of the boys eating pancakes off his plate. Rocky is walking home. Rihanna is already there waiting for him with the door open, the lights low, and the noise finally, mercifully, gone. Because in the end, the greatest love story ASAP Rocky ever told the world was never the one printed on a magazine cover. It was not the one lit up on a red carpet. It was not the one edited into a 3-minute music video. It was the one Rocky lived quietly day after day with the woman his mother had described to him long before the world knew her name. It was the one Rihanna protected fiercely while the cameras tried to trade it for content. It was the one Rocky and Rihanna are still riding tonight in a house nobody can see into, with a fire nobody can photograph, and a peace nobody in the industry can take away from them. Rihanna had always been the ending. Rocky simply needed the courage to walk toward her without the cameras following. And tonight, for the first time in a full decade, the cameras are the ones being left behind. Because the story of ASAP Rocky and Rihanna was never supposed to belong to the machine. The story of Rocky and Rihanna always belonged to Rocky and Rihanna. And the moment the world finally understood that, the world also understood something a great deal more uncomfortable. That the greatest celebrity move of this entire generation was not a viral single, not a Fashion Week takeover, not a billion-dollar deal, and not a Super Bowl stage. It was a man in a quiet living room with the woman he loves, whispering the words nobody else in the industry has ever had the courage to say out loud. That the noise was never the point. That the fame was never the point. That the flashbulbs were never the point. That the only thing that had ever been the point was the woman sitting across from him. And Rocky, at long last, was brave enough to say it. And Rihanna, at long last, was ready to let the whole world watch him mean it. That is the ending nobody predicted. That is the beginning nobody will forget. And somewhere in Harlem tonight, in a living room no camera will ever step inside, Rocky and Rihanna are exactly where Rocky and Rihanna were always supposed to be. Together, silent, home,